All right, so Troy here, Quad Standard Labs. Some may know me as Chef PV. Whatever you want to know me by, call me. Hey, that's up to you. But we are here today to help folks with a interesting problem and something that our clients are going to need to know going forward. So we're making this video for you, the client, but we're also putting this out into the world because, quite frankly, I just went through all this troubleshooting a few days ago, and it took a while, but I figured it out. And after thinking about it and sitting on the information and understanding how this is going to affect our clients and the fleet of drones that they possibly fly, I wanted to put together a little bit of understanding about what's going on here. So what we're going to be talking about today is Crossfire and the dreaded, 6.1 minimum version receivers. Real quick backstory. The reason TBS is doing this is chip shortage. They've had to change the chip apparently in the Nano Crossfire. I'm assuming this is going to start going over into the Diversity Crossfire at some point. But for now, it's only in the Crossfire Nano, the single channel one, or the single antenna version like we have on the bench here. And because the chip has changed, they have some interesting ways of needing to update the receiver, which at first glance, and I'll admit, I was frustrated as heck the day that this happened to me. I was just shaking my head trying to understand why this is even necessary. But again, a few days later, I'm here with some clear mind and some understanding. So I do appreciate what TBS is attempting to do here. They're attempting to basically get everything unified over into one kind of configurator, one set of firmwares. It makes a ton of sense. That being said, the lack of acknowledgement of the high rate of adoption that Crossfire has in the number of platforms, especially in the professional world these days, and how this is going to affect them, the lack of clear and very public statements and just spewed everywhere, this is what you need to know about Crossfire, please know this and start doing this. That's what I'm disappointed in. The same way that I feel like I have the accountability to my clients and whoever else wants to watch this to share the knowledge I found on this because it's going to affect people. I feel like the company making this making this affect people should be also doing. That being said, whatever. So I'm sure some great videos will be coming from Bardwell and all the sorts, but for today, I'm going to try to explain this for you and explain how to fix it or how to get it going. So first of all, this video is going to talk about how to flash the new receivers. It is not necessarily going to talk about incorporating your entire fleet over to 6.1, but you will probably need to know that you need to do all of your models need to actually get moved up if you're going to be doing this, unless you do like I did, which is I have one Crossfire module on one radio and one on another. This is pre 6.1, this is 6.1. I have to do this specifically because we build a lot of drones and we have a lot of drones that come in through our doors from clients, and we have to be able to run all the different firmwares. But I do, if you have any old firmware on all of your old receivers, just start updating now. So let's follow this process and I'll show you the deal. So if you have an old Crossfire running, not an old Crossfire, but Crossfire running pre-610 or pre-6 firmware, you usually will go into your little menu and you'll go to Crossfire Configurator and you'll go to Transmitter and you'll go to Bind. And it's going to say Reload Firmware. Now, the reason it says that is this is actually not running the Crossfire setup that I need. This is actually running old firmware. So it's not actually going to even attempt to bind. You see the light has gone from green to flashing red. It's hard to see, but it's flashing red. It's trying to update, but it's saying, I can't update with that firmware. So what do? What you're going to do, and I'm going to actually turn this one off because I don't need this one anymore, is you're going to connect, and we need to move over to Agent M. Oh, here we go. Agent M. You need to find in the browser of your PC. This is not Agent X. This is Agent M. To get there, you go to www.team-blacksheep/Agent M. Right there at the top of my screen, right there. You go there and it's going to pull this up. It's going to ask you to sign in. If you have credentials for TBS Agent X, use those. I've found that my credentials didn't really work. I had to rebuild new credentials, but whatever. There's some other videos I'm sure you can watch on that. Basically, you can link all those credentials together. Once you do get here, though, we're going to plug in our module. Once we plug our module in, it's going to set up, and we're going to hit link. It's going to say Crossfire. We're going to select it, and we're going to hit connect. Now, just like Agent X, we're in, configurator with the actual module. So we're going to go to the Micro TX. We're going to then go to firmware, and you'll see that I'm actually running 610. That's going to be what I'm going to continue to run. I'm not going to show you how to flash this. However, if you wanted to flash it, select it, update to 610, follow all of the directions. Do not navigate away from this browser tab. Also, it's going to ask you to continually, like once or twice, click the connect again, and you're going to have to select, the Crossfire module and hit connect. When you do, it's going to pop up. It's going to say it's updating all that stuff. So once you get there, good to go with the module. The module is set up and it's ready. Now, the problem is if you actually try to flash this receiver with this radio now using the original Crossfire configurator. So I'll show you here. So configure Crossfire. And we're going to again go in here. And then we're going to hit bind. It is actually going to ask me to update. And I'm going to update that receiver. But you'll see that the receiver is going to update and then it's going to come back into a status that's not correct. Don't worry about that. Don't do this, but if that happened to you, don't worry. Your Crossfire Nano is not bricked. Your radio's fine, all those things. What we're going to have to do is we're going to have to rescue the receiver, which I'll show you in just a second. All right. So as we reach the end of the binding procedure, we'll see it's going to go to 100%. It's going to say it's loading. But then okay, so at this point, we've got the receiver actually updated. This one happened to go through and actually bind. So we're connected using the Crossfire configurator built in already to the radio. However, we have had some receivers for some reason or another get hung up and not really like the binding method through the Agent M or through Crossfire configure. So what I actually recommend you do just to avoid all of this is do what we did in the beginning, update Agent M to your module, get your module nice and running clean, and then what you're going to do is you're going to want to go to the TBS store page here, and you're going to want to, under the TBS agent page, you're going to want to come and find Agent Lite. If you don't have Agent Lite on your radio, it's a really great little tool because it's basically the Crossfire configurator, but a little bit cleaner, and it basically runs newer, latest kind of firmware stuff. So what you're going to do is you're going to download the Agent Lite here. It's just a zip file. When you get to that zip file, you're going to extract everything out of it, which I actually already did here. And then you're going to copy the folder and this Lua over to your script folder on your SD card. To do that, super simple. We're going to just plug in our radio. And when we do, it's asking me joystick or storage, and I'm going to go to storage. Oops, I actually did joystick. And now that's going to pull up in my computer. We can go to the drive, and then again, we're going to go into the scripts, tools, and here's where you drop Agent Lite and that other Agent Lite Lua into the main tools file. Once you do that, you can go ahead and disconnect the radio, and you'll be able to go into your tool setting again, and you're going to see Agent Lite down here at the bottom. Agent Lite again is a nice graphical kind of interface, and this is where if you did not get it to bind the first time and it got hung up or something happened, use Agent Lite. That's going to be the final solution. So Agent M to the module, put Agent Lite on the radio, then you can bind to pretty much any receiver. It's not going to matter. Now let's say that you did get hung up on one of your binds and it's flashing red or not flashing. There's lots of different ways I've seen this thing hang up. Really simple how you put rescue mode on or how you reset the receiver. What we're going to do is we're going to actually unplug the USB that powers it. And I'm going to get it right there about to plug in. And I'm going to hold the bind button as I plug in. As I plug in and as the lights start to flash, I'm going to let off the button and then immediately push and hold the button. So I'm holding the button now. Let's get it held, make sure I got it. It's kind of tricky the way I'm trying to do it. Usually I do this in a drone and it's a little easier. Of course, the bind button, I can't feel it. Okay. All right. Yep. So I'm holding the bind button. I'm going to let it go and then press and hold it again as soon as it powers on. So, I didn't do it. All right. One more time to get it right. So holding the button, plug it in, immediately let go. Dang it, my thumbnail just keeps slipping off. All right, we're going to try something else. So I'm holding the button. I'm going to power on. It's flashing. Let off. Hold. It's going to keep flashing, do some stuff, and then it's going to come back to a slow green beep. There it is. You let off, and now if I power cycle it, we have now gotten back to rescue mode. So now the receiver is ready to bind again, and now we can go, and if we want, we can go ahead and use Agent Lite and get that bound up. So we're going to go ahead and do that just to show you. Crossfire, Crossfire Agent Lite. We're going to do Micro TX, bind. And again, it's going to ask us, are you ready? And then it's going to ask us, do we want to update? We hit yes. And now it's going to run its binding procedure. And when we're done, it'll be good. So once you have all this done, you're going to have to update all your other stuff if you have it. Again, unless you run two different radios. I highly recommend at some point just starting to get your stuff crossed over. Depending on what firmware you were on, will depend on if you actually have to physically push the button. If you're on later firmware, I believe all of the firmware that's in like the 4.2 something range or 4 something range, I believe, or I'm sorry, anything in the 5s, I believe has multi-bind and has that where once it's bound once, you should be able to rebind it no matter what the firmware change is. But quite frankly, I don't know. If you're running specifically older firmware, like the 4.8.3s and stuff like that, or pre-4.8.3, you're probably going to have to push every single button on every receiver. The good news is once you do, and once you get up to the latest firmware, after that, you should be able to update and rebind and all that stuff pretty quickly and easily. So that's going to be kind of what we're doing today and how we're making sure everything is together. Last little tip. Make sure when you flash your receiver module or your transmitter module that you actually select the proper frequency for your region and get all your settings set up before binding. One of the things I'd hate to see is for everybody to bind all their drones and accidentally bind it in 868 or 915 when you're supposed to be running the opposite. That would be a big have to go back and rebind everything kind of thing. So hopefully this helps. Again, I appreciate TBS for what they're trying to do here. I just wish there were a little bit easier to find resources on trying to figure all this stuff out. The real answer is Agent M, Agent M, Agent M. It should work all of the time if you just stay on the tab and you just follow all the process. But again, if it doesn't, worst case, Agent M will get you your module set up, and then you can use Agent Lite from there. Fly safe, fly smart, just fly. Peace.